Welcome, friends, to the Soul Talk podcast, a show where we explore and uncover the path to the heart, amplifying your conscience. Join me as we meet incredible souls who are in this journey and learn from their experience and different methods that will make you vibrate your heart. Let's get into it. Hello, everyone. This is Monica Ramirez, the Warrior of Love, and thank you for being here in Soul Talk. Today, we have a friend, Alan Simberg. He is he's actually a miracle worker for what it is in these moments the world is needing. You can see that there's more drugs, alcoholism, there's more addictions, and he have a PhD with plus 50 years plus. He's a licensed marriage and family therapist and licensed chemical dependency counselor. And he applies also all this in a clinical. He have a application apply clinical nutrition. I'm so sorry for that. And he's also an author and he's a speaker at the same time. And he's gonna be starting soon his podcast. So let's go with Alan. Alan, thank you so much for accepting my invitation for Soul Talk. I really appreciate that.
Well, thank you, Monica.
Alan, right now what I'm noticing that there's more drug addictions and alcoholism everywhere. And moving now myself to New Mexico, I find alcohol everywhere. It doesn't matter it's next to the tomatoes or is next to the pharmacy. There's so much and so available, way more than in Texas. The alcoholism, they claim is like, oh, we have a lot of drunk drivers, but why they make it so easy? Why the people are more susceptible for that? And when they're opening more and more the sales of alcohol and things like that in so easy way.
Well, I think there's two answers. Well, actually, there's one answer to each question. The reason, in my opinion, that they're making it more accessible is because they know that with all the stress that's going on in the world, it would be something that could bring them money.
Yeah,
And I think the reason why so many more people are using alcohol now is because of all the effects of the whole political climate that's going on, the economics, the all the wars, that people are having a really difficult time managing their stress. So in a sense, they use the alcohol to escape, at least temporarily.
yeah. In a way, because it will remind them more.
Yeah,
Yes.
yes.
So how we can help our society where we live so they don't have that much codependence in drugs and alcohol because it do ruin lives. Maybe not one drink, but you become a, a drinker for every single day. That is alcoholism. You need it every day. Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Or what is the definition of becoming alcoholic or drug addict?
What was your last question?
What is the definition of alcoholism or drug
Oh,
or addiction? I
oh,
mean,
what is the condition? Okay. All right. Well, there's a manual that's used to diagnose that from a professional point of view, and it's called the DSM. And there's all different versions. Every couple of years or every few years, they upgrade it. And basically, there are certain characteristics that a person has to meet in order to be diagnosed. And one of the big things that's changed within the last few years is the diagnosis is no longer alcoholic. The diagnosis now is substance use disorder.
mhm, yeah,
And basically, one of the main aspects of meeting that diagnosis is tolerance. And what that means is if someone starts out by drinking a certain amount of alcohol, and then the amount that they're drinking doesn't have the effect they're looking for, they drink more to get the same effect.
Yeah.
And then another characteristic that fits into that diagnosis is if a person is having trouble at work or maybe within the family, maybe managing money, all the different aspects of life. And then also there's certain time frames that are explained or described in that manual that it has to happen for a certain amount of time. And then once the person meets that criteria, they're diagnosed as having a substance use disorder.
And many times I understand that it's escape. The addictions are escape for something. And the problem is escaping obviously have not been the problem solver for the persons. It doesn't matter what kind of escape you have. It can be gambling, it can be eating, it can be whatever addiction or behaviors too. They're addictive too. But how we can, as a society, how we can help the rest of the people, because I bet right now, like the economy, the politics, and everything that is going, we're having at least a family member, and the majority of the homes that is going for any kind of addiction. It can be from food, it can be alcohol, it can be drugs, it can be behaviors, whatever it is. How we can help?
Well, the answer actually is to let let people know that help is available.
Yeah,
Because, some people can get into drinking, for example, but then they decide it's not good and then they stop on their own. But one of the biggest problems with addiction is it grabs you. It becomes a physiological dependence. It's not only a mental or emotional or psychological dependence. And very often, what people have said to me when I talk with them about whatever their addiction happens to be is that they do it to not feel sick. It gets to a point where for example, with alcohol, they don't want the hangover.
yeah. But they continue.
Yeah. And then the other thing, which is a vicious cycle, which goes along with this, is that the more somebody drinks, the less able they are to manage the stress. So they have to drink more because of the difficulty they're having managing the stress.
Something that I've been putting attention is there is a lot of Mexico complain about United States that United States we have the addicts and Mexico is the producer. I'm not gonna go who's the fault of who, but we do have the addicts. And something that is very, very expensive in United States, it is rehabs. So not everybody can go to a rehab or go with a specialist like you. So they want to solve a problem. So what do we have to do as a nation in a way? I know we're not into politics, you and me, but how we can go as helping to open more rehabs that the people can afford, that the people can go like with you or with any therapist, because obviously they are needing the help.
Yeah. Well, there's two ways that can happen. One way is very often when people have insurance, insurance pays for a big part of the treatment,
Yeah.
sometimes all of it. The only other thing that really can be done is that people would have to contact the politicians, their local politicians, and ask them to vote for the changes, to
Mm.
maybe establish grants.
Yes, because we see it in populations that the homeless population is growing and growing and growing, and many of the issues of the population of the homeless, they have different kinds of addictions, and that's why they ended there in the street. And the only way that I see help to help them, it is precisely going to rehabs.
Yeah. Well, actually, there is another option that's free. There are 12-step programs. There's no charge for that. Um, so there are self-help groups that people can go to if they know about it. So maybe another idea would be to advertise because there's a certain percentage of people that live on the street that social workers do have access to, or even the police. The police can let the people on the street know
Yeah,
that there is free help.
yeah, I see it here. They call New Mexico the fentanyl nation in a way, and the population of homeless, it is huge, and we see it because of the fentanyl and the alcohol and so forth. But something that when I talk with people that have addictions of any kind, because I call them even the mental addictions of repeating the same story, it is an addiction, and those are harder to leave actually than the alcohol, gambling, or drugs. It is what I see. It is they don't want to admit the first step, and the first step is I have a problem. So how do you work with people that at least you care? I'm talking about, of course, not as a therapist when they arrive with you or they arrive with me, they already admitting they have a problem. But the problem is that not everybody admits that they have a problem, correct?
Correct. And you're asking, how do you help people to recognize they have a problem?
Yes.
Well, what I have found that is most often quite helpful is instead of talking to people about having a problem, question them about the different aspects of their life.
Yeah.
So, for an example, one of the questions that you could ask, and this would be during the initial evaluation stage,
Yeah.
have you ever had a DUI or a DWI? It depends where you live, what it's called.
Yeah.
Um, are you having trouble with finances, with your money? And then you can ask questions encouraging them to explore, gee, what's causing that problem? Do you have a job? Or maybe they have a job. And then you could say, is the salary enough for you? And then see step by step. And then you could say in that scenario, what do you spend your money on? And you don't focus on the alcohol, you include it. So, what do you spend for food? What are your usual bill? And usually, not always, this is not 100%, but it's the way that I have found that people are more likely to recognize they have a problem. Now, the other part of this, which is extremely important and sometimes is overlooked, is that I'll always ask people if they're not willing to get the help, to help them to see. Let's say alcohol, since we're talking about that. What are the benefits to you of drinking alcohol? And there's always benefits. They may not be necessarily good benefits, so to speak, but there's always been. And then once I talk to them about that, I say, let's look at the plus and minus of your situation, the pros and the cons. And I do my best to help them to see they have certain experiences that are really, they don't even want them. And then the question I ask, which is, I kind of call it the magical question, is I say, what if you could have what you want without drinking?
Yeah.
And they'll consider that. For some people, they can't even imagine that can happen. But the other thing that I always do is I never push for them to immediately stop drinking. I
Yeah.
always talk with them about if they're willing to consider even cutting back some, how much they're willing to do. And sometimes people say, I don't know if I want to quit. I'll say, okay, well, as we meet, let's talk about that. And maybe I can help you figure that out rather than maybe I can get you to stop.
Yes. Imposing people to do something, it have never worked. And that's something as a NLP that I am, that I work with programs. I I see something really wrong with that with Alcoholics Anonymous. Even it is the only resources that we have free, but they establish and program that you're alcoholic. So if you have one drop of alcohol, you're gonna go back, and they do. But it is already programmed in them that you're alcoholic, so you can never have one drop of alcohol because you will go back. How we can manage that without programming the people that they go to certain, not with everybody, but Alcoholics Anonymous is one of them that is known that they program them that you're alcoholic for the rest of your life, and that's who you are. So they program them very well.
Yes, yes. So when I talk to people, the first thing I always will say this, if I think that what I'm going to say is contradictory to either what they were taught or what they believe.
Yeah.
And I always start out the conversation by saying, I have an idea. I just want to see what you think about it. And I don't mean to be disrespectful in any way. And I don't mean, my intention is not to change the way you think. I just want to give you another thing to consider. And then I explain to them that I don't agree with the idea that they're alcoholic or they are an alcoholic. I agree that they have a problem with alcohol. And then I explain, since you have a problem with alcohol, you're having a certain behavior that contributes to you drinking the alcohol, which means you can change the behavior and not drink the alcohol. But the most important part of all this is, and I know I've said this already a few minutes ago, to be a partner in decision making rather than telling somebody what they should do or judging them or criticizing them.
Yes. Yes,
And
because
I often use the example of diabetes. I say, when a baby is born, the doctor doesn't say, Congratulations, Mrs. Smith, you're the proud mother of a 7-pound diabetic. Diabetes is a condition, just like having an alcohol problem is a condition. It doesn't define who you are, but it might affect what you do. And I have found that the vast majority of people that I talk to about they're very accepting of that, and it's almost like a relief to them. And I also explain to them there is no way that anybody can necessarily tell you anything 100%. In my opinion, and this is what I say to them, the reason that Alcoholics Anonymous discourages you from ever drinking again is because when you drink, it can affect your thinking in
Mhm.
different ways that would all contribute to you going back and having the problem again. So my bottom line for you is, which is what I say to the person, is you have to decide if you want to take that chance.
Hi everyone, this is Monica Ramirez, the Warrior of Love. And if you have been feeling stuck where you are right now, or if you have felt that you cannot connect with others in the same language or the same emotions that you're feeling, if you're a coach, a healer, energy worker in any of those branches, maybe this is for you because we have felt the disconnection for the rest of our family, friends, that we cannot connect to them. And we're so afraid to actually go deep dive when we're getting triggered by our own clients because we're seeing our mirror image with them. My name is Monica Ramirez, the Warrior of Love, and that's my spiritual name. And I take clients from feeling confused and feeling stuck to feeling free, to feeling that they feel empowered from themselves. I created a system, Path to the Heart, that goes in three levels. And the first level, it is healing the inner child, healing the parts of us that we've been so afraid or it's very painful to do it. I have done it myself, not only with me, and I have done it with many of my clients that I take them to this process. The second level, it is to go more into inner self, clearing the family lineage, to breaking the contracts and vows, learning deeper more about the laws of the universe. And the third level, it is learning how to channel, how to do waking up your and getting online your gifts, your unique gifts that the world so much needs right now. So, if you wanted to know more about this, I am eager to show you and to teach you all what I know that I use every day in my life. So, thank you for being here in this page. I really appreciate it. And this is Monica Ramirez, the Warrior of Love. And I, right now that you were talking about that, it came a lot to the thought about the people don't believe enough in themselves, that they can do it, that they have the control, or many people drink because the lack of security, own security, self security, and to okay, so I can be nice with people, so I can don't have anxiety to seeing a lot of people or having a meeting, business meeting, and believe more in myself. Let me have some drinks with them. Let me get those things so like that I can sell more or whatever it is. But it is about the self belief problem. Why they start and they cannot stop after that.
And when the self belief can be clear and realistic, the person can make decisions that really is best for them.
Yes.
And sometimes someone has to make the decisions that don't give them the best outcome to encourage them and motivate them to make the best decisions. And one of the things, another thing I always talk to people about is to do their best not to beat themselves up for what they've done, but to do their best to learn from it.
And it doesn't matter how many times they fall with the same stone to get up and continue walking.
Yes, yes, because relapse is part of recovery. It
Yes.
doesn't have to be, but it's not shocking that it is.
Yes. Something that I teach a lot to my students, it is to learn how to become the observer of their own thoughts and emotions. And those are the ones precisely when you're having the emotion, it's like, I need a drink, or I need alcohol, or I need to do this. Sometimes you don't need anything of that. It is about catching the thought, catching the emotion before you take the action.
Yes. And one of the things that I add because I do something very similar to what you just said, which I think is a really helpful strategy, is, excuse me, I talk to people about the difference between need and want.
Yes. Yes.
And I help them to see that they experience it as a need because they're having trouble managing, but it's really a want. And there are other ways that they can manage that would be much better for them.
That is so true. I am a smoker, and that's an addiction. And I don't need a cigarette, but I do want it. That's a big difference.
Yeah. Yeah, it feels like a need,
Yes.
but need is something that keeps you alive. We need a breath. We need food.
Yes. That's so true. And it is harder to, I don't know how hard or the dimensions are, or even it's important to talk about uh, what is more dangerous for you, the smoke or the alcohol, or or what is more addictive of those things, because all of them are very, very addictive. The alcohol and the cigarettes are things that they're very, very hard to actually let go.
Yeah. So I think I'm laughing because I don't know how many people have ever thought of it this way. I think the thing that's most addictive is the thing that you're addicted to.
Yes,
Some of the things that like are in books and even what some professionals say, what difference does it make if cigarettes are more addictive than heroin or whatever? What matters is what's your situation, what are your challenges, what do you want to do about it? I'll help you to be as consistent as possible.
yes. And and it's different what the alcohol gives than the cigarette gives and the drugs do gives to the users. In the cigarette, I can say that what it give me, it is calm my anxiety and make me relax my brain so I can be more creative or do things. And it's not in the back of my head that it's like, oh, I need a cigarette to do those things. Alcohol is the liquid courage that many people call them. It is, you don't have the guts to say, speak your truth or being around people and you're timid and things like that. That's why they call them liquid courage. And drugs, it is, that one is totally escaping the reality that you're living in the drugs.
Say that again, please.
In the drugs, it is basically escaping the reality that you're living in. It doesn't matter what it is, but they don't want to confront whatever situation they're living in.
And
Correct?
yeah, and alcohol and drugs, alcohol's a drug.
Yeah.
They're all drugs. Yeah. People use it to be able to feel or not feel what they want to feel or not feel, or do or not do. Like you said about courage. Some people use alcohol for courage. Like I don't feel comfortable when I'm in a social situation. I need a few drinks. I'm doing good now. I feel okay.
Yeah. And unfortunately, there's people that are functional doing the drugs or doing the alcohol and still works and they have a normal life. And they can be even very, very successful. They're alcoholics, some of them. Not everybody, of course. And the same applies for drugs. I have met teachers that before they go to teach elementary, they have to have their cocaine or their or the or pot or something before they go to work. And no one even notice it because they do it every day. That's how people relate to them. So they don't even know when they're sober anymore.
Yeah.
And
And what you just said is one of the biggest arguments that people give when they're saying they don't have a problem.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. I grew up with a father that he was alcoholic, that no one in the family wanted to admit that my dad was alcoholic because he was a very functional and he was a successful business person. And but if they that's why I got to the conclusion if they need alcohol every day, they have a problem. And honestly, I cannot imagine my dad without alcohol.
Yep. And the other part of that is the effect that the alcohol and drugs has on a person's health.
Yeah. Yeah. He lost his kidneys.
Yeah. Yeah, because I've had experiences where someone maybe for whatever reason they weren't stopping and they went to the doctor and they found out that the liver enzymes were not so good. And the
Yeah.
doctor said, you could be in big trouble if you keep going. Sometimes that's enough of a reason for somebody to stop. I feel sad when a client tells me that it had to get to that point.
Yes. Yes. Definitely. And take responsibility at the same time. I am responsible creating this because that is the hardest part. It is easier. It's an addiction become the victim mentality that actually own your own responsibilities.
Yeah. And what you just said is what feeds the guilt and the shame,
Yes.
which then feeds the drinking and the drug using because
Yes.
they can't tolerate how they judge themselves.
Yes. Yes. It is kind of very sad that it's just increasing, and right now, like we mentioned at the beginning, between the wars and the economy and the politics and everything that is going on right now, at least in United States. I know it's happening in the world, but it's more right now. I see in the United States that is growing and growing and growing. That we're gonna have more addictions, people trying to escape or trying to numb the pain where they're passing through, and for their own economy, it's not even gonna get better. Even if already the money we have to stretch it more with economy where we're going with alcohol and drugs that you have to pay for them is not going to stretch it as long as they need to.
Well, the other thing which is probably already happening, and it's happened forever for people that use alcohol and drugs, is they stop spending on the things that are helpful and they just spend as much as they could possibly have. And then also, obviously, there's where the prostitution comes in too.
Yeah.
People will sell their bodies to make the money so they can get the drugs or the alcohol.
Yes.
It's a vicious cycle.
Yes, a very sad one. You have a book that you just published that is Back to Living. Can you tell us a little bit more about your book?
Yes. Well, the reason I wrote that book, and I also do have an e-learning program, which is really a much more in-depth version of the book, is that from the research that I've conducted, what I notice about the recovery help that people get once they've stopped using the drugs or the alcohol, or as you said, the gambling or the shopping or whatever, is basically to abstain from the behavior. I haven't found hardly anything that teaches people how to manage their life areas in recovery. Because what I've determined is that when people can manage their life areas and they're satisfied and they can manage whatever stress is usually there, it's less likely that they're going to relapse. And that's what my book is about. I have all different chapters, all different topics, but the primary focus of the book is to teach people strategies for the different life areas wherever maybe they were having trouble because of their drinking or using the drugs or the behaviors, so they can start to manage it and have satisfaction and have that as one less stress. And then one of the things that I always talk to people about, which is a very, in my opinion, an important distinction, is stress is not an issue. Stress is anything that you have to adapt to. We're adapting all the time.
Yeah,
What the problem is when the stress becomes distressful. So the focus of the strategies in the book and the e-learning program is to help people to manage the stress that's become distressful so that they don't have that extra pressure or what they interpret as the need to go back to the behaviors that are really not good for them.
that is so true. And to how to release that stress at the same time. It is about managing that stress. And I'm so happy that you wrote that book because it is important. And the information of Alan is gonna be in down below this episode. So like that you can contact him and you can get the book or the program or an appointment with Alan because you feel that even if you don't feel that you have the problem, but you have a family member that have the problem, and obviously we cannot help them as family members, we're too close, Alan can be able to help you. And so just contact Alan with that. And the book is called Back to Living. So you want to go back to living and not being trying to dorm your life. This is one way that you can go back to living. So tell us a little bit more about the podcast that you're going to be starting soon.
Okay. Well, I'm going to be having videos on YouTube, and the focus is going to be recovery from addiction. And in addition to talking about aspects of my book that I think would be helpful for people, which of course, in a sense, would be also talking about the e-learning program, I'll also be talking about all other aspects of what a person can use to help them to stay in recovery. So, for example, just one example of that would be, as you mentioned a while ago, how people think. I talk about a way to think. So, one example would be not to judge either themselves or any situation or anybody, but to assess it. And I explain that when we judge, we make something right or wrong.
Yes,
When we assess, we identify what's happened, we identify what we would like to be different, we identify strategies to contribute to that difference, and then see what happens. And if they don't work to our satisfaction, we have another strategy. And what I explain to people is that our words and our thoughts have energy. And I have them think about something where, oh, wow, yeah, I could feel that. Something obviously that's not feeling so good. And then I have them think about something that they enjoy. And they go, yeah, that does feel different. And then I help them to see if you can now develop that way of thinking about anything, you'll have less stress that has the potential to become distressful, which then can help you to remain in recovery.
that is so true. Something that happens with the spiritual community that I see, the love and light people, they try to when they feel the emotion or they're having their negative thought, it's like let me shove it down, let me push it down and don't look at it, don't look at it. But the only problem with that it is it's going to show up again and it's going to be even bigger than it was
Yeah.
before because you try to hide it so much. And that's when many people choose alcohol, drugs, or shopaholic or whatever it is for They distract their mind. But the don't think negative, that doesn't work neither. When you tell someone stop thinking negative things, they can't. They're gonna be
Oh,
thinking more because you mentioned that.
yes. Don't think of a pink elephant.
Exactly. But they substitute the thought for a positive one. It is possible to
Yes.
to remove the negative thought
Yes.
and to name the emotion that you're feeling at the same time. You're feeling
Yeah.
angry. Mention, I am angry. I'm sad, or I'm depressed, or I am whatever it is, but name it, observe it, instead of shoving it down.
Yes. Is it okay if I just go do something real quick?
Sure.
Okay.
So that's one of the problems that I see observe also with the people when they are trying to shovel down their emotions or distracting their head from the thoughts that they don't want to think.
Yes. And I have also found that and I help people, I do my best to help people to realize, which is really what you're saying, that by pushing it down, it's a very temporary help and it's just going to come back up. And sometimes I even use the analogy of a pipe that if there's water going through the pipe and you block it, eventually the pipe might burst
Yes.
because the pressure builds up. Just
Yeah.
like, and I say, just like your emotions build up.
Yes. That is so true. And in a way it is I have put this challenge for to my students and I'm mentioning now that it is I'm not gonna tell you to only think positive things because that is impossible. I'm more where we are now. But you feel them you have the negative thought and substitute it for a positive one. First start for 1 hour, then 5 hours, and then 1 day, 1 week, etc. And make it bigger. You are at the same time are getting used to more positive thinking.
Yes, yes, yes. And one of the strategies that I use to help people do exactly what you just said, it's called cognitive behavioral therapy.
Yeah,
And
CBT.
and there's three parts to that. There's
Yes,
challenging the thought, determining another way to think, which is what you said, and then distracting yourself because you're used to thinking that way. So it's likely, like you're saying, it's likely you're going to go back to it. And that way you develop the habit, again, as you said, of thinking in a more positive way.
yes, yes. Cognitive behavior therapy. It is actually very good for all these stresses that we're getting right now. And and that brings me to one question about PTSD. Before we used to think, or I used to think, that PTSD only happened to the people that went to war. But now I have encountered housewives, everybody, that they have PTSD. Many people have more PTSD more than they even know it. So, and that would take you again to the addictions, the PTSD. So, how do you handle with people with PTSD and addictions in your therapy?
Well, in a sense, I kind of come at it in two different ways. One of the ways, and of course, I'll integrate the cognitive behavioral therapy,
Yeah.
is I'll have the client talk about what their challenges are, and I help them to see that whenever they're in a situation that's similar to the situation where they experienced any trauma, the memory and the feeling of the trauma will be reignited.
Yeah.
And then I talk to them about their nervous system and I teach them a breathing technique to calm their nervous system. And what I explain is that when your nervous system is revved up, it's easy to react to a situation and be triggered by the past trauma. When your nervous system is calmer, it takes more to get triggered, and it can also prevent you from being triggered. So those are the two ways I work with people. And that's not one of my specialties, but whenever I have someone who says, I've had this trauma, and depending on how intense the trauma is, for example, sexual abuse or physical abuse, I explain to the people that trauma, not necessarily sexual abuse or physical abuse, but the trauma effect, I don't have training on that. But if they want to talk with me about it, I have helped other people. And if they want to see if I can be helpful, because one of the things that I've learned, I did attend one trauma training. And what I learned is that there's different levels to treating trauma.
Yes.
And one of the levels is where it seems like no matter what you do, it doesn't help. And there are special techniques that can be used in that situation, which I have not been trained on. So let's say, for example, if I were to talk to somebody who, no matter what I did, didn't help, I would tell them that I think that they need to be with somebody who is specially trained in that type of treatment.
Yes. And unfortunately, or fortunately, many people needs to feel comfortable with the therapist. And if they don't feel comfortable with the therapist, that doesn't mean the therapy doesn't work. That means that you need to find a person that actually can help you, that you feel that you can trust them and you can open yourself so then you can receive the help.
Yes, exactly. It has to be a match where the person can trust and feel safe.
Yes.
Definitely. Otherwise, you could be the most wonderful therapist in the world, but it don't matter.
Yes. If they don't trust you, they will not open up and they will not receive the help that you can give.
Yeah. And one of the things that I've learned to help for that trust to develop is I always focus on what the client wants most of the time, unless it's something kind of not so good. If they want to go kill somebody, I'm not going to say, okay, let's figure out how you can do it. But but I focus on what their priorities are, and I always do my best to listen as consistently as possible so I can know what that person is going through. And then we'll talk about possibilities of what could be helpful and if the person is willing to see if it can be helpful.
And unfortunately, right now, with the booming market of life coaches, and many of them, they don't have a training. And I have met people like, oh, I just retired. Like, I'm gonna open a life coaching business. It's like, do you took any classes? You have any training or certification? No, but I have life. That doesn't make you a life coach. You have to get the trainings, and there's always more to learn. And that's something that people don't want to continue learning, and not everybody can help others. Or like something that you mentioned early, it is important to let them get to their own conclusions so like that they can get real changes. You cannot force someone or telling someone now you're gonna think this way. That never works.
Yes, yes. And interestingly enough, I don't do coaching, but I am certified as a coach. And one of the things that I learned is that there's two different types of coaching training. One is teaching a more direct approach where the coach does make specific suggestions. And then the other training is where the coach is much more passive and just asks questions. And what do you think about that? And have you what strategy, helps the person to discover on their own what could be helpful.
Yes, that's true. And life coaching certification is just one layer. It's the first layer. From there, there comes the cognitive behavior therapy or RABT or NLP, or there are way more that we can get. That is, I'm fascinated by the subconscious. So I have gone to that. The other day I was talking with my daughter, like, I'm fascinated with it. So I want to continue learning more about it, the subconscious. But that's what the life coaches, the people that want to be helping others, needs to get. So like that, they can give a better service.
Yeah.
Because yes, we need mental health in United States. And if we're going to be not going the front, because obviously life coaches, we don't get paid by insurance. That's a problem. But if we get the certifications and we have the capacity, maybe we can help even if we don't get paid by insurance.
Yes. Yes. One of the things that I learned was getting the education and the training allowed me to do what I needed to do.
Yeah.
Doing it taught me how to do
Yes.
it.
That's true. You're gonna,
Yeah. Yeah. I learned from my experiences. And in the beginning, mostly what I depended on was my training and my common sense.
yes. But the experience makes the teacher.
Oh, oh, yes, definitely.
So true. Alan, it's been my pleasure to have you on So Talk. And if any of our viewers or listeners are having any questions, please write it down in the comments. I will address them to Alan, or you can contact him directly. In the description, it is going to be his information and all his links. So like that, you can get a hold of him or his book or his programs that he have. And don't forget, soon he's going to be opening his podcast too. Thank you so much, Alan. I really appreciate it.
And thank you very much, Monica, for allowing me to have the opportunity to provide your audience, which I will hope would be helpful to them.
Yes. So don't forget to share it, guys. Maybe one of your family members or one of your friends is needing to hear this video. Thank you so much. This is Monica Ramirez, the Warrior of Love.